My name's Cassidy Phillips, as you've just heard. And I've gotten the ability to sit down with a handful of you guys just a bit ago. And first off, it was really exciting to get to sit down with people that were really excited about their businesses. Because as you get in business for an extended period of time, there are times that the excitement goes away. So it was really great to hear the great ideas and the planning that's gone into the passionate people that were sitting at the table. And I hope that you guys continue the quest. It's one of the things I'm going to talk about here is try to find your place in life, right? That's what you're ultimately trying to do. Your business and you as a person are very close to one another. If you think that your business is something other than you, you're wrong. If you find that you have trouble communicating in your everyday life, if you have trouble communicating with your significant other, if you get aggravated with people that are in line in front of you at the grocery store because they have too many items in their bag for the 20 items or less aisle, you're probably going to get irritated with the people that you work with. It's hard. I mean, we all work on ourselves every day. But that also has to transfer into your business. And so as we go through all the stuff that I'm going to talk through, I want you to think not only about your business, I want you to think about yourself. What I tend to say a lot is you have to identify with who and what you are to be who you want to be in life. And I believe that you have to do the same for your business. You have to understand where your business is today in order for it to get to where you want it to be in the future. So that being said, I was fortunate enough to start a company called Trigger Point. Trigger Point Performance Therapy, TP Massage Ball. It's gone through so many iterations of what it is today. I had the benefit of starting it out of the back of my car, literally. I started just in 2002, just over 13 years ago, out of the back of the car for a specific need for me. And since that time, I've now exited the company. I'm the former CEO. I still work for the parent company. But when we sold the company, we had an incredible multiple. Our EBITDA was awesome, and we were doing just under $20 million in sales a year. That blows my mind. I mean, it's one of those things that I never concentrated on. I never thought about, hey, I want to go out and make a bunch of money. I was the guy that, I was the variable. I was the guy that nobody knew what I was going to do. So my father used to claim I needed to get a little more focus in my life. Well, I got it. No. Yeah, take it back. Yeah. No, it's funny. I'm going to show you something, and then I actually wrote a list for this because it's that important to me. I typically get up and I talk about this passionate advocacy and really being able to pursue your purpose-driven life and follow your dreams, but turn that dream into a goal and have that goal obtainable so you can put your fingers on it so that you can ultimately touch it. And by touching it, you can turn it into something that's real. But dreams, when you shut your eyes and you dream every night, unfortunately, it's a dream. And you wake up and you forget what your dream actually was. And a goal is written down, and every day that it's written down, you can look at it, and when you look at it, you can know how to get to that goal. So when I started out as a young entrepreneur, and we were talking about it earlier, and I think I started out breakdancing in the malls of Aspen for money when I was a kid. I mean, that's when I said, you know what, I'm going to do something with my life that it might be of a different color than everybody else has done in my life. And I have some incredibly successful people in my family. My older brother is unbelievable in what he's trying to do with creating wealth for people across the country in a way that they never thought. I have a younger brother that has been able to look at deals, and I sat with him the other day, and I said, I don't know what you're talking about. It was like Chinese that he was talking to me, but he's got this big office, and he's just killing it in the job world. And then I sat there and I said, okay, well, let's go back and look at my life here for a minute because, there's a lot of people that think I'm pretty successful now, and I attribute that success to all of my mentors. And my mentors never knew who they were. My brother was always a mentor to me. My father was always a mentor to me. My younger brother was always a mentor to me. There were people in my life that created great difficulty, but those are the ones that I knew that I didn't want to be like or I wanted to be like. So every day that you look at your business, every day that you look at your life, every day that you try to pursue that purpose-driven life, you have to stop and say, who are those that I want to be like and who are those that I don't? Build those barriers to those that you don't and look at those that inspire you every day. Now, I can go back to the day that I went to college. It was a pretty pathetic attempt at college, I might add. I did pursue, I went to Metro, which there was somebody who was from Denver that I talked to earlier. So I went to Metro for a year in Denver so that I could go to University of Colorado because Metro was just not cool enough for me. So I needed to go to University of Colorado because that's where all the good-looking girls were. And so I got there and I lasted a semester, I think. Isn't that what you call it? I'm not sure what you call it, but I didn't last long. I was diagnosed with severe dyslexia, and plenty of people still don't believe that to be true, but I took it, and I said, okay, I'm out. I'm out, yeah. I'm not fit for the confines of learning in a traditional sense. I'm not satisfied with being taught in a way that teaches everybody else. I feel like I'm unique. I feel like I'm different. I got to express myself. I'm going to go out and be an actor. So I failed in a purpose-driven world of education in the traditional sense. But I actually succeeded as an actor. I went out and I went to LA, and for about 8 to 10 years, I made my living as an actor. And I made a bunch of money then, but I spent it all. I didn't know I was making any money. So it was still a success. But then I said, hey, you know what? I like me, and I like to talk about me, so I think I should probably start producing films. I mean, I get a greater response from a woman if I say I'm producing films and I'm an actor in a film. So it was all about me. So I said, hey, I'm going to start producing films. And I ended up producing several films and made zero money. I made nothing. It was cool. Chicks dug it, but I failed. I failed at the attempt to follow a path that I felt like I should for the greater good of being able to talk about myself or to pursue money. Now, when I left LA, I moved to Atlanta. And I said, I got to figure out what I'm going to do in my life. And of course, I followed a woman to Atlanta. That really worked out well. It did not. But I went to Atlanta and I said, I'm going to fall into the traditional sense of business. I'm going to go into real estate. It lasted a week, literally. I couldn't do it. It was numbers and process and forms and all this stuff to sell a house. And I had to cater to the person that I had to sell the house to. Oh, it was awful. So it lasted literally about a week. But I had done all these extreme sports living up to that. I started racing BMX when I was 8 years old. I started doing triathlons when I was 10. I went to nationals by the time I was 16. I wanted to be a pro cyclist, so I moved to Colorado right out of the gate. I left Shreveport the night of my high school graduation to race for a team out of Colorado. I was always driven to be more than what somebody else was going to label me as being. I always wanted to test the boundaries of myself so that I could ultimately figure out who and what I was. So those things that I was passionate about, I believe I won. Those things that I was not passionate about, I lost. Now, the failures helped define who I was ultimately going to be in life. The nature of athletics and the pursuit of excellence and the quest to be more than what I was in any given day, I attribute to my father. Because he gave me the ability to understand that status quo is okay, but to want to be more is invigorating. I got to train with him as a cyclist. I got to pursue and win races by his side. But it gave me the ability to say, you know what? I don't have to be like everybody else. And you know, he hates hearing that. This is all his fault that I wanted to be different. But the beauty is that different allowed me to go back to athletics in my weakest time. I said, I'm going to go, all I know is to be athletic. I'm going to go back to doing triathlons, and I want to be the best age group triathlete I can possibly be. Now, I had these wild dreams that I was going to be, a pro yet again, but I was 30 years old, and it wasn't going to happen. But I started training really hard, and as I continued to train, my body started to break down. And as my body started to break down, we couldn't figure out what was going on. And when I say break down, my left side of my body went numb, my feet started to drop, I could barely walk at times. It'd take me 2 hours to get to the pool. It was a very depressing time in my life. I was a zero in my own eyes. I lived a life of being able to talk about myself. That's what everybody wanted to hear. I thought that women wanted to hear about me. So what did I do? I did more so that I could talk about me. Now, I think I'm funny, and that's one of my funny moments. But the reality is, I was so egotistical. I had built up myself to be something that had value to me but no one else. I went after the wants in my life, and I ignored the needs. And when my body started to break down, I really had to take a look at myself. I had to realize who and what I was in order to be something more than what I was that day. And I went to see every specialist that I could, trying to find somebody to take care of me. We've all been there, right? When you have something wrong with you, you go find somebody to take care of you. And unfortunately, I saw every specialist I could, trying to find somebody to take care of me, and unfortunately, none of them knew what to say or how to say it. I did vitamin C IVs. I did glutathione injections. I did B12 injections. There was a fear I had MS, so I'm like, listen, I want to do an Ironman before I die or end up in a wheelchair, so just somebody give me the ability to do what it is that I love to do. Nobody had the answers. So all of a sudden I said, okay, I'm going to look at me, realize that in order to take care of myself, I got to empower myself. I actually studied the Bible half the day, and I studied the human body half the day. I stripped away the complexities of religion and all that stuff and saw the Bible and said, okay, I got it. I'm good. I stripped away the complexity of medical and said, you know what? I got it. Biomechanics, tissue tolerance, fibers and levers, fulcrums and levers. Tissue tolerance is what ultimately is going to allow me to be who I want to be in life. So I created this. Now, if you can imagine, this is a V1 ball. You see, it's not particularly pretty. It's a little stick guy sitting on a blue ball. If I'm talking to my logo guys from earlier, I've already made the mistakes. When your wife's driving a big truck with a guy with a little blue ball on it in Vegas, they ask where your facility is. Right? So this ball, I was standing in my father's driveway, and I said, hey, Dad, I'm going to sell this and change the world. He said a few colorful words. And I think the exact salutation of those words were, when are you going to get a real job? How many of you guys as entrepreneurs have heard, when are you going to get a real job? When are you going to focus your life? When are you going to turn these dreams away from who you need to be? You have a responsibility. Well, I took this responsibility and eventually turned it into this. A little more fashionable, right? Looks good. We sold it for $15 at the time. And now, ironically, I've sold the company and they've changed it, right? So you always have to be prepared for change. And change, unfortunately, can be for the better and sometimes for the worst. But for me, I had to realize that the needs versus the wants were most important. If you can provide a need, if you can successfully deliver a need, that is a commodity to someone. If it's a want, that means you're going to have a tougher time selling it when the economy goes south. That means you're in the special needs category. Have you ever thought about your business that way? Needs versus wants. So when you start your business, as I was forced to do, I said, okay, how am I going to build this business? How am I going to get it in the marketplace? How am I going to influence the world? I truly believe that I can influence the world, but I have no money. So what I did was I went to my grandmother and I said, listen, Mimi, I need some money. And this was not the first time she had heard that. So she said, well, listen, Cassidy, all your other cousins have come to me for money, but you haven't, right? That's a true story, kind of. But I said, I need some money because I truly believe I can finally change the world. And she said, you always dream these big dreams. And I'll support you in your dream, but there's going to be interest. And I said, what? She said, yeah, you're going to have to pay me back. And I said, you know what, you're on. And I said, I'll pay you back within 3 years. So I borrowed $17,000 from my grandmother. And within 3 years, I paid her back with the interest. Now, within those 3 years, I lived in an Airstream and a truck, and then I lived in a motorhome. Now, let me kind of jump back and tell you that my body was breaking down. I looked spectacular. I'm not going to lie. I was just dynamite because I was training all the time. And I had moved to Atlanta for a girl, but the girl that I didn't, that dumped me, okay, I'll be honest, she didn't work out. But I met my wife in Atlanta. And the day that I asked my wife to marry me was the same day that I started this business. Literally the exact same day. And so when I launched this company, I had a new wife, and I had a new business, but I had a new vision. I had a vision that was uncompromised. Now, we all know the path can change, right? But that vision always needs to be the same. And so what I did, I packed my wife, I packed an employee, I packed my dog, and I packed myself into an Airstream and a truck and traveled for 3 years launching this business. Now, I've gone through enough therapy with my wife that I think I'm out of that first 3 years of trauma that she experienced for living with a dog, an employee, and myself in an Airstream. For all you ladies that are married or are not married, I'm pretty sure that doesn't meet your qualifications for a honeymoon. But the most amazing thing was my wife was willing to work just as hard as I was for the business and for each other. It was critical. Otherwise, we would not have been successful. It was never about the product. It was always about what the product did. So when I ask you about your business, I want you to be convicted in what your business does. I want you to understand exactly what its identity is. You have to take a reality check every day and understand who and what you are to get you through that day. So you have to do the same thing for your business. If you don't stop and look at where your business is today, it will never get to where you want it to be. Because you're never living in reality. And that's why I ask you to turn your dreams into goals so that you can manage your goals on a daily basis. Now, I'm going to share a couple of things. Like I said, I have a list. I want you to understand, believe in what you are doing, okay? Believe in what you're doing. Now, I needed it so much, I actually tattooed it on my hand right here. Because every time my hand went on that steering wheel, I had to believe in what I was doing. If I just believe in myself, I could do actually what I thought I could do. But those weak moments, those days where I'm driving down the road and we're packing up packages on the road in the truck so that when we get to the next city, we can load them all up into a shopping cart that we borrowed from the shopping center. Did I mess with it? There we go. Sorry about that. So we would take a shopping cart, we'd fill it up with packages, we'd process it through PayPal, we'd go to the postal service, we'd ship out all our orders that we got online, and then we'd go to another event. We built this business on the ground level, going event to event to event. It was always about empowering people to be able to take care of themselves. It was never about the product. It was about what the product was capable of doing. Now, when I ask you to believe in yourself, when I ask you to look at yourself every day in the mirror and believe in what yourself is capable of doing, I need you to trust your gut. How many guys have had gut checks and you went against it? And it got really difficult, right? Your gut was like, no, don't do it, don't do it. You're like, man, there's money. I can make so much money. This is great. This partnership is exactly what I need to do. And you get into it and you made the wrong decision. Trust your gut. Listen to what you're saying to yourself. Because what happens is, when you complicate situations, you challenge yourself, right? When you complicate situations, those situations become obsessions. Any of you guys ever been obsessed about a situation that you're in your business, that you're currently in or that you're trying to start? And that complication gets ugly. And that complication doesn't allow you to sleep. We've already talked about the 3 o'clock, 3 a.m. Everybody know 3 a.m., right? Why is it always 3 a.m.? You wake up at 3 a.m., you look at your clock, it's literally 3 a.m. Sometimes it's 3:11. But you wake up and you're like, why? Why am I up? And all of a sudden you go, man, all this stuff that I didn't do, I should have done better. I should have done this. I should have done that. Stop. When you're believing in yourself, you're taking care of yourself as well. The body tells the mind to do incredible things, yet the mind tells the body to do horrible things. So if you're not taking care of yourself through your entrepreneurship, through your startup, through your business, unfortunately, you're going to make unhealthy decisions because you're going to be totally spent when it's time to make a decision. So I beg you to take care of yourself. Now let me talk a minute about vision. And we talked about this at the table earlier. That vision has to be crystal clear. You can write 50 thoughts on a piece of paper, and I'm pretty sure that I just used a Captain Crunch decoder to try to figure out what was being said at that table earlier. Now, if you're old enough, you know what a Captain Crunch decoder is. If you're not, you're like, huh? Was that on Gilligan? No, you got out your cereal box, and you're able to look at the words on the back of a cereal box, and it actually made sense. And most people that you talk to as an entrepreneur, nobody understands what the hell you're saying. You're sitting there and you're like, man, I got the best thing that I could ever share with you, and it's an incredible opportunity. If you would just listen to me. For 1 minute, I'm going to share how I'm going to change the world. And they go, huh? What? What's the process? Is there a process that I can follow? No, there's not a process that you can follow. But your vision has to be so crystal clear, but at least they can follow the vision. And my vision was always that healthcare and self-care were going to merge. And fitness and therapy were going to merge. And I'm going to be right there at the center of all those crossroads. And when that happens, the therapy that I created for myself is going to be available to the world. Now, through that process, I'm going to have to say the same thing over and over and over and over and over again so that somebody will believe in what I have to say. But when I do turn somebody into believing in what I'm capable of doing for them, that's worth more money than you could get from any VC group out there. That is the integrity that you have to build a business. So living in an Airstream in a truck, going event to event to event, allowed my vision to come true 13 years later. Nobody understood it then, but I did. Now you have to understand the path can always change. You can always take a different road to get to where your vision is, but always keep that vision consistent. Challenges. How many of you guys have had challenges, not with your business, but with what's in your head? How many of you guys have had problems communicating the words that are in your head or the thoughts that are in your head to the words that come out of your mouth? And after you take those words that come out of your mouth, you're supposed to put it on paper. And then when you get to that paper, you're stuck. How do I turn this into a reality? How do I explain to my Father what I'm going to do with my life? He's heard words all his life. I've talked a good strategy. I can talk you deaf, dumb, and blind. But man, if I got to put it on paper, guess what? I better find somebody to help me. I better find somebody to help me fast. Now, I had some great friends. I had some great friends that wouldn't help me. They listened to me, but they had jobs of their own. They had to supply the need for their family. I was this crazy kid that was out in California making a bunch of money. Not really, but whatever. I made it seem like I did. But the idea of trust was a hard one for me. I had to trust someone to turn my vision into a reality. I had to trust someone to translate my words into writing, and that writing into a business plan, and that business plan into an equitable opportunity for somebody, anybody, to invest in me, to take all the problems away from what I'm dealing with. Well, unfortunately, money doesn't do that. Money complicates things. But the reality of trust is very simple. You have to trust all those that are around you that believe in your vision. You just have to make sure they believe in your vision. If they don't, if they just see you as having a great opportunity for the future, don't hire them. Your gut will tell you that. Surround yourself with confident people. A confident body is a confident mind. Those that you hang out with, those that are confident, you want to be around. Those that aren't, suck the life out of you. So find that confidence and be able to take care of your vision, but don't circle back on those that you trust. Now, I'm going to ask you a question because I like to interact here a bit. How many of you guys have trusted someone to bring your vision to light, to put it onto paper, turn your artwork into creative, do whatever it is, and in the 11th hour you circle back and you go, you know what, that's not what I like? Whose fault is that? Is that your fault or theirs? Because guess what? They did their best, but you didn't communicate well. And by not communicating well, they failed. But by them failing, you're an asshole. And why are you an asshole? Because you didn't communicate well. And guess what? Now you're branded a bad boss because you can't communicate well. What it is you didn't trust them. And you didn't trust yourself. You did not trust yourself to communicate well enough for them to understand what you're trying to achieve. So don't circle back in the 11th hour. If you want to be involved in that project, you stay involved in that project. But don't come back in the 11th hour if you're not involved in that project and say they did it wrong. Because they did it right for them. They did it wrong for you. And the reason I can say that is because I did that every day. I could look at something and I'd jump in, I'd jump out. I've looked at all the variables and said, here's what we need to be doing. But I wouldn't do it beforehand. I'd do it afterwards. You know what that does to somebody's confidence? It strips them of it. And I'd walk around my office saying, I'm a coach. I'm not a CEO. I'm going to coach you up. But you can't strip them down and not build them back up. So you have to communicate clearly through that process. Now, communication, on that note, the lack of communication is like cancer. It slowly deteriorates everything around you. And you need to be very careful about the way that you communicate. Organization in is organization out. You have to go into it organized, and if you want it organized coming out. How many guys are very organized? You IT people, I hope you are, right? Because it's what, ones and twos or X's and O's or whatever, dashes and whatever that all that stuff is that I don't understand. But the point is, organized in is organized out. Don't blame somebody else for not putting a process in place, but don't let that process crush your passion. Because you are the only one that carries that torch, that passion that can light the flame of all those people that are supposed to believe in what your company's doing. But get all the people behind you believing in that process, so that process is followed up on every time you go stand in front of a group of people and say, here's what we're going to do and here's how we're going to do it. And we all know you're puffing it. You can't do 35% of what you're saying, but you're still saying it because you want to get there. Process behind passion is key. And this is a real tough one for me. Attorneys. Attorneys all make more money than you do. Just suck it up. It's a reality. But get them on the front end. Don't get them on the back end. Get them on the front end and be intimate with them the same way you are with your significant other. Not physically, but verbally. Right? Tell them all the good, the bad, the ugly. Because they're the guys that are going to get you out of the trouble spots. The corners, right? The corners, I talk about corners a lot. There's corners that gather dust. There's corners that gather money. And there's corners that gather problems. And by ignoring what's in the corners doesn't mean that they're not going to, the fan's going to turn on high one day and all that dust and all that money and all those problems aren't going to end up on your coffee table. So organize in, organize out, get your attorney. But the one thing that is imperative that I've learned, and this is a tough one for everybody, the more money you make, the harder it gets. The problems become more complicated. The passion becomes withdrawn. And the process starts to outweigh the passion. And all of a sudden you get stuck in a rut and you're like, man, I don't know how I'm supposed to manage my passionate process. I lived in a motorhome. I lived in an Airstream for 3 years. And now I've got millions of dollars that we're bringing in revenue. This silly little ball, the concept of this silly little ball has done over $60 million in sales around the world. I don't know what the hell that even meant. I just knew I had to keep doing my vision. I had to keep doing empowerment. I had to keep doing the on. And what I mean by the on is everybody says no. Man, I need some money. No. Man, you need this product. No. Man, I just need you to pay my airfare. No. Turn that no into on. Oh, it's on. It's on. Really? It's on. I'll be back. University of Colorado that kicked me out that said I'd never perform at a university level. Oh, it's on. I came back 7 years later and taught the entire strength training staff how to use our products and programming. Oh, it's on. So find that inspirational word for you and turn it on. And don't let anybody turn you off, because that means they've won and you have lost. Brand. Brand is critical. Brand is the most critical aspect of your business today. There is so much noise in the marketplace today. There's this thing called the World Wide Web, right? It's crushing it. It makes it so easy for you to make money, right? No. It creates a world of nothing more than uncertainty. It gives you the ability to make noise like everybody else, and has people not want to buy your product because they don't know what your back end is. They don't know if they can trust it. They don't know if it's viable. They don't know anything other than the 1,000-pound gorilla, and that's Amazon, right? But the idea between money and brand is very simple. Brand is money. It's equity. It's equity in people. How do you have that brand equity in the environment today? And how are you utilizing that to acquire capital for the future, or acquiring the opportunity to gain a customer for the future? How are you turning that into your reality? Because I didn't have any money. I gave 17 grand back, and we didn't have any debt through the entirety of the business. I didn't live off of debt. I lived off of the bootstrapping technique of every person I converted was $1. Every person that I converted was $1 million. Because what I was able to do is turn them into a person that loved our company, that believed in what we did, not who we were. They became me for their community. We gave them the vehicle to allow them to enable others to pursue a healthy lifestyle.
All those that were in need of better movement, I provided an opportunity for them. It was the low-hanging fruit. We were the lowest barrier of entry for healthcare. So when you think of money and the money that you need, I want you to think about your brand and how you need to get out and out of your chair and into the community and brand your company. Because branding is what will allow you to weather the storm between profitable business and not. Branding is what will allow you to live through a tough economy. We grew in 2008 65% that year. And that was one of the toughest times in our economy. The FDA came in and shut us down for 3 months. Said we couldn't perform the way that we were because we used the word plantar fasciitis. We still grew. 2010 came along. We still grew because I had a staff that was willing to put their heart on the line for the greater good of what our company was doing. So identify your strengths and identify your weaknesses. And a strength is a strength. You know what you can do with your strengths, right? You can move mountains. But your weaknesses, you're hard to identify them. You're not willing to discuss them. You know, there's a whole world out there called shrinks, right? I don't want to talk to them because I got this figured out. You know, being a CEO is a lonely world because you can't talk to anybody because all you're going to be is judged, right? I can't talk to anybody. I don't know who to talk to. I don't know how to talk to them. But if you identify your weaknesses, they are strengths. Your weaknesses that you have in your brain right now, the inefficiencies of getting your company to be a reality, those weaknesses are strengths because you can hire someone for those weaknesses. So write your weaknesses down every day and try to either change yourself, which is highly impossible, or hire for yourself. You are the company, and the company is you. The DNA of you is in the company. Your weaknesses in communicating with others are the same weaknesses that hold your company back. So identify with that. Now, I'm going to give a couple of steps to entrepreneurship real quick. I want you to pay attention because these are some of the most important things that I've learned through this process. Passion. Passion before process. There are many battles that have been won out of passion and lost out of process. Now, Apple. Anybody own an Apple product in here? You know, it almost went out of business, right? Steve Jobs was a jackass, right? Nobody liked him, right? And Bill Gates was a genius. He's going to create the process for everything. Which one won? The biggest company in the world is Apple. Why? Because Steve Jobs cared enough to look at every single item. He'd look in, he'd look out, he'd tell you what needed to be done. Maybe he wasn't the greatest communicator, but man, he was a genius when it came to brand and the touch and feel and the look and feel of the product. Now, Microsoft, you know, they have a great business, and there's a lot of process-driven businesses out there. But man, Apple, Steve Jobs, they said, you know what? Have a designful company. Look at the design, look at the marketing, look at all the aspects of a marketable company before you start worrying about a product. Because if you can't market that product, guess what? Nobody's going to buy it. You can have the best product in the world. If you don't know how to market it, you don't know how to communicate it, nobody's going to buy it. I'm sorry, but that's a reality. So passion before process. Entrepreneur-induced depression. Let me talk about this real quick because it's a reality. We call it athletic-induced depression if you're an athlete, because I've been able to work with all these top athletes around the world. There's not a sport in the world that we haven't influenced. But athletic-induced depression and entrepreneur-induced depression are very similar. Because there's going to be a time where you're going to be sitting on your couch and you're going to be wondering why nobody understands you. There's going to be another time that you're going to be sitting on your couch wondering how you're going to pay your bills. There's going to be another time when you're sitting on your couch and you're hungover because you drank too much the night before because you thought it was a good idea. Now, while you were having that good idea, you decided to make some really strategic moves in your business. And when you made those really strategic moves, you made some partnerships that you're not really happy with. Don't make decisions while you're drunk. Don't do it. Now, here's the deal. You tend to fight with your employees or your significant others at 11 o'clock at night. I believe it's because you're dehydrated, honestly, I really do. You're dehydrated, you've pushed through the day, and you make poor decisions after the hour of about 8 p.m. Now, in the morning, 11 a.m., guess what? You can make some pretty good decisions. So when it comes to making decisions, give yourself 24 hours or wait till the morning. Don't make any decisions at night, and make sure you get plenty of electrolytes in your body after you've boozed it up all night. Now, this is an interesting one for the guys that were sitting at my table, because, man, bright-eyed, a couple of great ideas. Ignorance is bliss. Ignorance is bliss. I didn't know any different when I started Trigger Point. I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to run a business. I had these other startups, but I had other people that made up for my inefficiencies, and they failed anyway. So you know what? I'm learning every day. I'm going to the School of Hard Knocks. I know how to run a business in the world of passion. I know how to be the guy that stands up in front of everybody and says, here's why. Here's the why. The why is valuable. The how, not so valuable. But I'm going to sell you the why, but I'm going to give you the how. And that why is going to change the world, and that how is going to make you feel like $1 million. But unfortunately, when you're become slightly successful, you start to say, well, I'm capable of doing this. I'm a stud. I'm successful. I've done 100,000, I've done 1 million, I've done 5 million, 5 million, then I got to get to 10 million, 10 million, all of a sudden 15 million. I got to get up to $20 million. That's what I need to do. I'm the CEO of this company. I know how to run a business. I know what a P&L is. I know what EBITDA is. I know what adjusted EBITDA is. But guess what? I hate it. It sucks. It sucks the life out of me. Numbers scare me. I have dyslexia. I mean, it's like literally, I don't want to look at the number. I don't know how to say the number. What do I do? Ignorance is bliss. Hire people to help you in those situations. Ignorance is bliss. Fight through that barrier of entry. Ignorance is bliss. Put your desk next to the smartest guy in the room, right next to him. If you got a copy. Why? Because you'll learn it. Duplicate somebody else's business. If somebody else is already doing it, learn from their mistakes. Identify their mistakes and don't make the same ones. And you're going to become a much more efficient machine. Because there will come a time, once again, passion and process will have to meet. Gut check. Once again, the body tells the mind to do incredible things. The mind, as we know, drunk, tells the body to do horrible things. Right? So the idea there is trust your gut, guys. I mean it in all sense of the word. Trust your gut. You know when you make bad decisions. You know it. You look in the mirror and you say, I don't think I should do this. Oh, man. And you still do it. Because you think you can make a lot of money. And if you're in a startup today, if you're in an entrepreneur relationship with yourself today, and your dream, your goal is to make a bunch of money, go home and find a job. Because the likelihood is you're not. 3% of all businesses succeed. And here's the deal. Success is, you got success on so many different levels. Find your success. Find your on. You don't have to make $1 million. You can make $100,000 and live happily. Don't judge yourself to other people. Judge yourself to what makes you happy. And find what makes you happy. Now, I know a lot of you guys are here in search of money, right? You guys want money, right? That's what you want. Guess what? It makes you stupid. Because you think it's the answer to all your questions. You think it's the answer to all your problems. It's just like a hot girl or a hot dude. That's all I need. That's all I need. My life's over. I'm good. You know how many problems most of them have? Right? They got a lot of problems. So money has a lot of problems with it as well. What if you give up too much of your business? What if you don't give up enough? What if you put too much money in one area, you don't have money to do something else? I love the nature of bootstrap. Throw that passion on the line. Throw that purpose on the line, and let that be your equity. Let that be your dollar. Grow without debt. Don't grow with debt. Debt makes you scared. Money makes you scared. You turn into somebody that you're not. Money, unfortunately, creates cockiness. I can get through this. We got plenty of money. I had a company where we were the largest sponsor of the Cannes Film Festival. I had a 140-foot yacht in the south of France. We had apartments in the south of France. We spent $5 million on the Cannes Film Festival alone, and our investors ended up on the boat saying, we're done. What? Money makes you stupid. So think smart. Your money is your company's money. The way you manage your money is the same way you manage your company's money. It's not yours at the end of the day because somebody can always call it. So be careful. Brand, I'm circling back to this one more time because it is the most important thing. I had a conversation with my father about it the other night. Brand is what changes the way that you're going to be able to grow your business, grow your life. Your brand is you. Your mark is your brand. So concentrate on that every day. Find a mark that you're willing to wear every single day of your life. You want everyone to associate your mark with who you are. Now, lastly, I want to talk about this. Know when to exit. Know when to exit your business. Okay? And what I mean by know when to exit, now I built this business over 12 years, right? 13 years. I traveled around the world. I had the ability of working with athletes around the world. I presented to thousands of people around the world. I had a great ego. It was a really awesome thing for me. It was very, very cool. But I had a wife. I had 2 kids at home. And you know what? I realized 3 years ago that in order to exit this business in the right way, what I need to do is I need to exit the office. I need to take care of my wife and kids. That's really my responsibility. My financial responsibility is to my family, not for me traveling around the world. My responsibility is to make sure that my wife and kids are happy. So guess what? I created an exit strategy every week from the office so that when I exited the business, they would still be there. Because I know so many people that have exited their business and their family is gone. They took advantage of their kids. They took advantage of their wife. They took advantage of everything that was around them because they said, you know what, they'll still be there. And they're not. So for who and what you are, to be who you want to be in life, find that time for you. Make sure you're taking care of yourself and those that you're responsible for, and then take care of your company. It'll be fine. You find people that are great for your business. Give back. If you're successful, give back to your employees and give back to your community. What Gregory's doing here is saying, I want to create an environment so that when you are successful, you'll help somebody else. When you are successful, you're going to help mentor someone else. You're going to share the same experiences that you learned with this startup prize with someone else. You're going to inspire, you're going to motivate, you're going to turn people into believers that they can go out and change the world. Because most people don't believe that. They believe that I should live a life of status quo. I should make the average amount of money. I should have the average wife or husband. I should have the average car. I should have the average lifestyle, and that should be enough. And when you die, you're done. I'm out. I'm gone. I had a pretty good life. Everybody in this room saying, I'm not going to live for that. I want to live for more. I want to inspire. Confidence is a driving force to success, guys. A confident body is a confident mind. And I mean it. Confidence is a driving force to success. Find your confidence. Look in the mirror and find your confidence. You may be insecure with relationships. You may be insecure with school. You may be insecure with your athletic ability. But you know what? None of that matters in business. Find your confidence. Find your purpose-driven life, go after it, have no inhibitions, and pursue it with all you have. And you may have a shot of being successful, but there's no guarantee. So every day you pursue it is every day that you're successful. Every day that you pursue it is the day that you're not sitting in a cubicle looking at the back of somebody's head, wondering why they're crunching those nuts, while they're sitting right in front of you with a pencil sharpener that nobody uses pencils anymore. Use a pen. Don't do it. Believe in your own abilities. Believe in your own abilities and you'll find that you're capable of doing everything that you set out to do. People thought I was crazy when I started Trigger Point. I'm not going to lie. Most people thought I was crazy. But in the end, I succeeded. It didn't have to do with a business plan. It didn't have to do with the money that we raised. It didn't have to do with my Harvard education. It didn't have to do with a lot of the decisions that I made. It had to do with me being absolutely crazy that I thought I could change the world. And this is the coolest part. My little brother sent me a text earlier today. And he said, and I'm mentoring him in his business, and he's mentoring me in life. It's such a great relationship. But he sent me this text. Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them. But the only thing you can't do is ignore them because they change things. They push the human race forward, and while some may see them as crazy ones, we see geniuses. Because the ones who are crazy enough to think that they can change the world are the ones that actually do. Now that's Apple. That was taken from an Apple commercial so many years ago, and you know what? They did it. And I sat with people today at their table, and they can do it. And I think all you guys are capable if you're willing to sacrifice. Now, who knows the root word of success? What's a Latin term? The Latin root of success is suffer. Business, how much are you willing to sacrifice? How much are you willing to suffer for what you believe in? That's really what you have to ask yourself at the end of the day. And thank God that you guys have this type of opportunity where you can work with others and be mentored in a way that I didn't have. So ask all the right questions, be vulnerable in every situation, and tell them the truth of what you're struggling with. And I think that everybody in this room is going to start to change the world. Thank you. Thank you. Did it go too long?
No. We're ready for Q&A?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, 35 minutes. That's not bad.
Okay, so before we get ready for the big competition, we have a little bit of time to do some Q&A with Cassidy. So, anybody have any questions?
I'm gonna have a comment. I just wanted to thank you for telling your story because it's kind of like what we all needed. Like, it's one thing to hear what you should do, but to know that you did it kind of made the difference. When you talked about your decision to, fill your orders in a cart and go from show to show to show to, get things you believed in it, that kind of just like, that was the boost, the push that I love to hear. So I just want to thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody else? This is your one shot.
Don't be shy.
What is that ball?
What is that ball? Well, so yeah, this is the time that I don't get to get into all that. All the products mirror the feeling of an actual hand. So when you shut your eyes, you're to believe that you're getting worked on just like a therapist would be working on you. I created process, so 22422. So that process is what's followed every day with all of our products. So that process is ultimately personal hygiene. So it's to allow you to work on yourself, your muscle tissue every day, to give you, basically add water to the sponge. So your muscle is an uncompressible cylinder that lives with liquid within, but as you get dehydrated, as we all know, when you get older, you get stiff. That's dehydration. So we revitalize the tissue with that type of product.
All right, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Okay, so it seems like you've been an entrepreneur all your life, from breakdancing to
Yes.
success now.
Yeah.
At what point did you know that this is the idea you need to go with? Because I think we have a lot of serial entrepreneurs out here. How did you decide this is the big one? This is it.
Wow. I stopped doing it for everybody else. Even as an actor, which is a self-absorbed world that we live in, I was doing it for everybody else. I just wanted to feel important. I wanted people to recognize me for something greater than what I was. And when I realized that I can be me and I can put that into a business, I started the products were originally created just for me, selfishly for me. So when you can stand behind something that truly works, I never had to make the decision. I was stripped down to zero, and I rebuilt in this company, man. I had a confidence that I had never had before. That really is the truth.
Cassidy, you talked a little bit about those dark days,
Mm-hmm.
and my friends and I talk about this from time to time. We talk about just living through it because you recognize the pattern and it's coming on.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, this is going to be one of those days. Could you talk a little bit about your process whenever?
Yeah. One of those days was every day. It's funny, I gotta give it over to my wife because, once again, the day I married her was the day I launched this company, and I stripped away every bit of her identity by working for Trigger Point. I took her out of a corporate job and pushed her into Trigger Point, and thankfully she was willing to work as hard as I was on our marriage. So that is really, she was amazing in that regard. But now what nobody sees is I got a bunch of ink all over my body. This is what I had to be to sell my business. This is who I wanted to be, right? So you got to be able to manage that pretty closely. But when I'd have one of those days, crazy or not, I'd go for a run. I'd take care of myself because that's what typically was missing in the process. I forgot about me. I lost my identity in the company. And so I have words in certain places, and that was so that when my head was in my hands here, I could remember my family. That's the most important, man. We can concentrate on business all day long, but what do we remember by when we die? Or remember by the $2 million EBITDA that we did, or we remember by the relationship that we have with our kids. So it takes a strong individual to be able to understand that a bad day is someone else's great day. So because you're doing what you love to do. Yeah.
You talked about being able to scale your business, and you knew that you had a product that was in demand. What if it's a service that's in demand, and what would that look like to you?
We were ultimately a service industry. We were a service provider. We just, when I say it's not about the product, it's about what the product does. The product was the vehicle. So with any service, there's a vehicle, right? There's a beginning and an end. And there's typically a person on the beginning and the end. So as I said, you go, hey, how are you? It's good to see you. I don't like people. I don't like doing that every day. But guess what? When you're building your business, you have to. So in the service industry, all you have to think about is, I'm not going to put the attention on myself. I'm going to put it on others. And how do I want to be treated? And if I can treat them the way that I want to be treated, I think I might be able to be successful. But the service industry is the key. It's the cornerstone of our society at the end of the day. So you have to understand service is what everything is. Call your cable provider and see if you get service, right? Customer service sucks in this society. So if you can give good customer service, that is marketing. So turn your customer service, turn the way that you look at your entire business into marketing. A bad customer can be turned into a good customer as long as you handle it the right way.
And we have time for one more. Anybody? Okay, I'll go again.
He's got one back there. Yep. Man, you know what? Boo. I had come back to Shreveport, And I took advantage of a house next to my father's. I ruined it on an accident. It didn't mean to happen, but I parked an Airstream in front of it, and I turned it into a manufacturing plant. True story. The poor thing about the sad thing about the Airstream was I sold it on eBay one night. I was in town. I think I was with you at dinner with you, Colin, and I had put a $10,000 price on the Airstream. It was awesome. It was so crazy, and sold on eBay one night. Went and bought a motorhome, and I actually just took the motorhome that I traveled in. I put 80,000 miles on it in a year, and then we parked it in that same place, and it had, when we just gave it to our first retailer that I ever had, gave it to him. It was a gift. I had to put $20,000 into it to get it workable. But we gave it to him for the thankfulness of believing in Trigger Point. And so we gave that to him, but the Airstream is gone, unfortunately. I also, though, the cool thing is, I talked about the first employee that I ever had. I sent him 2 checks, one for 2014 and one for 2015, both for $25,000, and he had no idea, to say thank you for all the effort that he put into the business way back when. Remember to give back.
All right, y'all give it up for Cassidy.
Thank you. Thank you.